Serendib Kitchen, Mohanraj. I'm here to show you how to make beef smoore. So we're going to be doing beef smoore in the Insta Pot, which is a great adaptation because this recipe typically is a long, slow cook at very low heat for 4 to 6 hours. And some days I have the time for that, but often I don't, and the Insta Pot lets it speed up considerably. I love this recipe because it makes a really delicious result. It's great for a Sunday roast. I would serve it to guests. And it's also really easy. It's basically kind of combine everything and set it going and then come back and it's done. Basically, few steps in between. So I did some prep in advance. I chopped up onions and ginger and garlic. So figure, I don't know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes in advance for doing that part of it. And then we're going to move on to the first step is you want to take your meat, and I've got a couple pounds of chuck steak here, and you're going to stab it a lot. Stabbity, stabbity. This is a great way to get your frustrations out. So, should you be anxious about the pandemic or the election or anything else? All right, so you do some stabbing, get the other one, and I'm going to stab that one as well. And you're just making lots of holes for the delicious marinade to go in. Okay. And I usually use a plastic Ziploc bag for this because it makes it really easy to keep turning and getting all the marinade in there. So I'm putting in the meat, okay, and then I'm putting in a half cup of vinegar and about a tablespoon of ground pepper. There we go. And about a tablespoon of salt. All right, and then we're just going to combine that. And what you're going to want to do is mix it all up nicely, get it well combined, and then just let it sit and turn it every once in a while for about 1 to 2 hours. Go away, do something fun, come back. So I'm back, and I have to tell you I made a mistake. This version of the recipe that I was doing was if you were going to do it on the stovetop, which is how I originally did this. This is how you would do it back home in Sri Lanka before slow cookers and Insta Pots showed up. You would let it marinate in the vinegar, salt, and pepper for, actually longer would be better. So I think in my cookbook I say 2 to 4 hours. Doing it for the Insta Pot, I wouldn't put the vinegar in and I wouldn't do the plastic bag thing. I just rub the salt and pepper over the meat. So I'm taking it out. It's going to be fine. I'm taking out both pieces, and I'm going to set this vinegar just aside for now because we are going to use it again in a minute. So I've put oil in here now, half a cup of oil, and I set my Insta Pot to saute. What makes an Insta Pot different from a slow cooker in this is that the Insta Pot has the ability to do sauteing things at high heat so that you can do things like brown onions in there, or in this case we're going to sear the meat. If you're trying to do this with the slow cooker, you're ideally going to want to go back to your stove and sear the meat at the stove first, and then you could take it over to the slow cooker. So, all right. It will help a lot if you have tongs, and my oil should be hot, and I'm just going to put this big piece of meat in here, and you can hear it searing. It's making a lovely sizzly sound. I'm going to let that be for a second, and I'm going to turn it over. Do the other side. Because I messed up a little bit and I put vinegar in, it's not going to be searing quite as much as it would otherwise because the moisture from the vinegar is going to make it cook more than brown. So this is going to be a suboptimal version of how you do this. All right, put the other one in, let it sear a little bit. It'll still be delicious. It just won't be quite as browned as it would be otherwise. So you can even hear the difference because the oil is not as hot, it's not sizzling in the same way. But it'll be fine. Once you've done that, once you've browned the meat, at this point it's just basically putting everything in and letting it cook. So this part is pretty straightforward. We're going to put the other piece of meat back in. If there's any juices, you can go ahead and dump those in. That vinegar should go in. Okay. Then we have a whole bunch of other stuff. 2 curry leaf stalks, I'm putting those in. Cinnamon stick. Typically I would put lemongrass in, a stalk of lemongrass chopped up. The store was out of lemongrass, so lemon rind or lime rind will work pretty well too. So putting in 3 pieces of lime. Then about a tablespoon of chopped ginger. And 6 cloves of garlic, chopped fine. And this is already starting to smell terrific. Over here, I've got a tablespoon of tamarind dissolved in a cup of hot water. That goes in. 2 tablespoons of Ceylon curry powder. Ah, I lost part of the lid. Okay. So one thing is that this is made Sri Lankan style, which means it has the cayenne mixed in, so it's really pretty hot. The kind that I make, I usually leave the cayenne out so that people can adjust to their own taste. So the recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of Sri Lankan curry powder and 2 teaspoons of cayenne, which would be really hot. I'm going to cut that down a little bit. So, and then we're almost done. 1 teaspoon of turmeric and ½ teaspoon of fenugreek seeds. This is also called methi seed. Okay. And we need one more thing. Yes, salt. 2 more teaspoons of salt, because there's quite a lot of meat. And this may seem like a lot of salt, but in my experience, Insta Pot cooking tends to really mute and mellow the flavors quite a bit. So you usually do want to amp up the seasonings a little in order to get the right flavor at the end. And then we're going to add about a cup of coconut milk as well. So this really is a tremendously simple recipe. Wait a minute, I forgot the onions. Cheese! They don't actually need to, yeah. They don't for even on the stovetop. Only the meat gets seared. Okay. And then you mix that all nicely, getting all the meat coated in spices and ready to cook. It's beautiful. In fact, Kevin, can you bring the little camera thing over here just so people can see before I close it up what this looks like? There you go. Beautiful. Very nice. Okay. You're going to want to mix it all. Then you put the lid on. Then you set it to pressure cook for 45 minutes. Go away, have a drink, play with the kids, come back, and it will be very close to ready at that point. So mix it all up pretty well, because you want the meat to be nicely coated in all these beautiful seasonings. All right, then we put the lid back on, Okay, there we go, and I'm going to tell it to cook for 45 minutes. Pressure cook, there we go. And we'll be back. Okay, so we're back. The timings on this are maybe a little confusing because I said cook for 45 minutes. That's once it comes up to pressure. And at least on my Instapot, that took at least half an hour. So overall, you still have to allow a chunk of time to get this done, but not nearly as long as if it were on the stove. So you let it go, and once the pressure releases and it's safe, you can take the lid off. And at this point, you're done. All you have left to do is to take it out and slice it and serve it. So, sorry, it's a big, heavy piece of meat. And if you were doing it on the stovetop, what you would have done differently is you would have waited on the coconut milk. When the meat was cooked through, in the last 15 minutes or so of cooking, you'd add the coconut milk, and then you'd actually remove the meat, add the coconut milk, and simmer it and let it cook down to a nice sauce. And we actually have, let's see, is there a way I can show you? I think this will work. We have sort of a nice kind of liquidy sauce at this point, which is fine. If you wanted, you could put this on the stove top, or I think on the Instapot you can stick it back on saute, bring the temperature up, and just let it go for a little while and simmer it down. And then usually to serve, you would slice it. So, ooh, it's going to be very hot. I don't know how well I can do this. You'd let it cool a little bit, but you'd slice it, and there you'll have these beautiful roast slices. And eat that with rice and curry. The sauce is amazing. Really simple cooking. Chop it all up, put it in a pot, let it go. And there you go. Indonesian-based Sri Lankan beef s'more. Happy cooking.